joining us here on Bridging the Gap radio talk show. Whereas I always say we're inspired by faith, but are committed to taking action. My name is Sal Mendez, and I am your host here for our Bridging the Gap talk show. I want to welcome any first-time listeners that are maybe joining us for the very first time. Welcome, and we hope that you continue to visit with us here every Saturday at 7:30 p.m. and every other Saturday at 1 p.m. and at 7:30 p.m. as well. As you know, each week we bring you special guest speakers, and today is no exception. I am very, very pleased to have with us a couple of guests here. One guest in particular that's been here with us before. And so I'm going to go to him in a little bit, and he's going to introduce our guest here. But before I do that, I just want to make sure that everybody remembers to visit our Facebook page and like our page. Leave us a comment, let us know how we're doing, or maybe some suggestions, or whatever it is that maybe you want to tell us. Just make it positive, please. Also visit our Instagram and our YouTube page, and we also just launched off our brand new webpage as well, btgnation.org. There you'll find some of the links for our social media. You'll find our calendar. You'll find our directory that we're working on at the moment. Just a lot of things that are going to be on that website. So definitely go and check it out and see what Bridging the Gap is about. Again, thank you so much for being here. I'm going to go to my guest here real quick. He's been with us before. He represents an awesome ministry called STCH, and that's STCH. And I'm going to let him talk a little bit because I don't want to spend too much time, because I want to give them the time to be able to share what they want their listeners to know, and let them know exactly what they're doing and how they're impacting the community. And just by talking to them before the interview here, believe me, you don't want to change the dial or the station wherever you're at. So thank you so much, Tim Tolosa, for being here. STCH Ministries, welcome back. Thank you for taking some time to be here.
Thanks a lot, Sal. It is good to be back with you and kind of in a co-host
yes.
role and kind of help out here as we get a little more information on two of the most amazing guys you'll ever want to meet. I've had the privilege of being with STCH now for almost 2 years, and it has been a crazy ride. One of the things that Sal had asked me earlier when we were talking was how has COVID affected what you guys do? And I'm going to let my two guests that are here from Houston and from Corpus Christi, they are also directors with the STCH Ministries, Faith and Finances, Faith and Work programs. And they're going to share some information about how God has used this pandemic to actually increase what he is doing in our ministry and in the world, changing hearts and helping people to find God's way of living their lives. And so let me introduce first from Corpus Christi, Jimmy Rodriquez. Jimmy is the director there for Faith and Work, Faith and Finances, and does a great job with his team in the Corpus area. And then we also have Darrell Jackson from Houston, who is here visiting with us today. Both of these men have had profound impact in their communities, and I would just love for more and more people to find out about what they can do and what STCH Ministries can do for them. So I'm going to turn it over a little bit to Jimmy first of all, because he's going to address some of the things that God has done through this pandemic and how he's used it to further his work.
Well, I would go back. We were introduced. You notice Sal said very, very. You didn't say three very small. Maybe that's Tim. I'm not sure. I don't know. But look, the three of us, there's nothing we wouldn't do for each other, and that's the relationship that we have. Now, I'll tell you what happened during COVID. We've been doing this now. I have for 8 years with STCH, and before that, it was several years before that. It was called Christian Women's Job Corps at the time, and now it's Faith and Work, Faith and Finances. Of all those years, of all the past years and all the current years, last year was our biggest year yet. A pandemic, can you imagine?
Absolutely.
We think we don't think it was a God thing. He had us go through it, and wow, look at that. And so we have some amazing opportunities coming up as we're partnering with other agencies, BGCT being one of those. 5,000 members they have, and I don't know how we're going to do that. We're going to let God do it. That's how. And see how we can year after year grow the partnership, the relationship, so that we can get these ministries out. And sometimes we hear it said a lot that we're the best kept secret, and there's 9 amazing ministries. But we're going to today talk more about how are we doing with faith and work and faith and finances.
Jimmy, real quick, some of our listeners may not know what BGCT stands for.
Very good. So it is the Baptist General Convention of Texas. They rebranded too. We're Stitch. We were South Texas
Yes.
Children's Homes for 70 years, and now we rebranded. We're Stitch Ministries. So did they. They're Texas Baptist, simply said. And there's different versions of it. There's in Espanol, and there's the Texas Baptist. And so we're partnered with them. We're actually tomorrow, this week, we'll be having a lunch and learn, so we can tell you more about faith and finances. And so we're really excited about that. It's a whole curriculum that is amazing. The Chalmers Center developed it. We're actually one of very few other organizations that get to use their platform to train. And so I'm going to let Darrell talk more about that, because he's the master of that. And we're just having fun. And I wish we were talking earlier, I wish somebody had taught us. I'm kind of the grandfather of the group, but
Granddaddy.
when we were in middle school,
Right. Yeah.
why not? They don't teach this in school. Wouldn't it be great if we get more churches, more nonprofit, more
Yes.
faith-based organizations
Amen.
to teach what the Bible says about money? Do you realize that 600 times the Bible talks about money? It talks more about that subject than any other subject.
That's right.
It must be important. And so we think it is, and we want the whole world to know what can happen when you are good stewards of the money. It all belongs to God. But what would happen if we let Him take charge and we just be good stewards of it?
Right.
I can tell you this. I love telling stories. So there's a guy in Ingleside, not far from outside of Corpus, and then I'm going to turn it over to Darrell. After a faith and finance class, before the church, about 200 people, 150, 200, 40% tithing. 40% tithing, and that's probably that's really good.
That's pretty good.
Yeah, compared to some of the stats I've seen.
Right.
After faith and finances, 90%.
Oh my goodness.
Can you imagine?
should've
Wow,
got that
you
on
think
Facebook.
that's not why we do it, but it's a
Right.
pretty compelling reason to do it.
Yes.
And their families have breakthrough after breakthrough after breakthrough. We should have them on here one day
Sure.
by
Absolutely.
whatever
Yeah,
platform we can
Yeah.
find, because they have stories to tell. God is doing that. We're just obedient to the calling. God called us 3 to do this, and our great staff and lots of volunteers and lots of people that we're certifying. So it's a movement, and God chose to move it during the pandemic year. Can you imagine?
Yes.
Wow, that was not in our plan.
One of the difficulties that we had was trying to come up with a plan, because the pandemic came upon us really quick, and we weren't sure how to move forward, because everything we had done has been in person. And we were used to doing in-person classes, and now we were up against the roadblock of not being able to gather at all. This is pre-mask. There was no gathering to
In
be
fact,
taken.
we were doing Zoom before Zoom was a Zoom.
Yeah, and,
exactly
you know,
right.
I remember right now, because I was taking one of your courses. I was monitoring one of the youth courses, the
Yes,
Faith and
that's
Finance.
correct.
And I remember we didn't get to finish because they like shut everything down. It was like 3 weeks left.
Yes, that's
and so
correct.
I'm like, okay, we're not going to finish this. So I remember now. I mean, that's
But I think that's where the beauty of, how we've been able to trust God through the whole process, and even through the changes, we've been able to pivot. And in midstream, at the end of the day, last year, when we knew this is what we had to do, we had to move from in-person to online. We had talked about going online for several years. I've been with STCH Ministries for about 3.5 years. And early on, we talked about offering classes via Zoom or online. It was kind of like, well, we'll get around to it. Well, God had a different plan. And
you say, why are you
he
taking
moved
so
up the
long?
schedule.
Right.
Yeah.
Come on, guys. Why are you guys taking so long? And so
Absolutely.
we just put our head down and just started moving and began to create a platform initially to begin to use as a repository for our classes and our information. But then how God would have it, as we began to look further and said, we have Zoom available, we have Teams, we have all these amazing platforms out there already. Let's just utilize them. Let's just capitalize on them. And so, as Jimmy stated earlier, last year was like one of our best years.
Yeah.
As God just allowed us to not panic, but to pivot.
Yeah,
right.
Absolutely.
We didn't panic, but we pivot. So
it's a good term, and really, we found out that God not only wanted to use our ministries in our regional areas. San Antonio is mine, and then of course Corpus is Jimmy's and Darrell's in Houston. But he opened up doors where, Darrell, I believe you graduated students from Dominican Republic. I've graduated students from
Yes.
Mexico.
Yes,
We've got a
forgot
class
about that.
going on right now
Yes.
where one of our graduates from the Mexico class is now a facilitator, certified facilitator, and is teaching a class of 22 students via Zoom every week.
Wow.
And so God has opened up doors that we really didn't realize would be available to us.
There's no excuses now, right? If you
No.
want to,
No.
you want to learn.
right.
I mean, you don't even have to leave your house now. It's like you can do that through Zoom.
Right.
So
And
there's no excuse for
That's
learning.
exactly
Correct.
right. And one of the great things about STCH Ministries is the fact that it has an amazing foundational basis of donors who give so generously that we're able to offer these courses to the individual, to the organization at no cost to them. And but they're more than willing, more than welcome to come in and to partner with us anytime that God leads them to do so. But there's no requirement. We just want them to be able to learn the things that God wants them to know from His Word. So,
Well, I think, Tim, as well as you mentioned the classes that were offered in the DR, and Dominican Republic, and Mexico, and other places. I can remember the class that I taught to the folks in the DR, and it was kind of like, wow, this is amazing. We're doing something that we never even dreamt that we would be doing. We were actually over there a year prior to that, a few months prior,
January,
or something.
just before the
pandemic. And so Tim and I taught a small class to the students, but it was like, man, we really want to do this more. And then a few months later, pandemic, and our VP Joanna Berry said, we want to offer faith and finances to our folks over in the DR. We need you to get on Zoom and teach them. I remember one of the classes that we were going through, and we were talking about the importance of leaving a legacy, that a wise man leaves an inheritance to his children's children. And so we were talking about insurance and making sure that we have policies in place and things of that nature. And of course, different culture, different way that they do things. And one of the students said, "No, we don't do insurance. We're not doing insurance." And I said, "Why? Tell me why." So we kind of probed a little bit. After that deep and rich discussion, the particular student came back after the class and said, "You know what? I think I'm going to get insurance for my family."
Yeah.
And we talked through the scriptures in the Bible and just helped them understand that at the end of the day, we have to be intentional about the future, our kids, our children, our children's children, being responsible with what we have. And then I remember another student mentioning the fact that he and his wife began saving for a house. So again, story after story, and as I think Tim or Jimmy, one of you guys said earlier, it's really no excuse for people not to be in these classes. I mean, we're teaching classes in the DR and in Mexico, and before, when we were teaching most of our classes in person, people were getting off, especially in Houston. I mean, 7 million people, traffic everywhere. So if you get off at 5, 6 o'clock, you can hang it up, right? Yeah. It's pretty difficult to get to class. Now you can drive and live. Yeah. Well, I don't recommend that, but you get home at a decent hour.
Audio part.
Yeah, at least the audio. There we go. You get home at a decent time, and you don't have to worry about the commute to a training location. You get it, go home and get that done, and get off the call and go enjoy your favorite TV show. And so I just think the convenience
I think there's convenience and there's flexibility.
Flexibility,
So
yes.
we're doing a lot of hybrid classes
Yes,
now, where if
yeah.
you don't feel comfortable having a face-to-face, okay, stay at home and get on that way.
Right.
And so we actually have a class where there's in McAllen, there's a lady that joined us, and now she just got certified to start her own class down there. But to have a class with people face-to-face and by Zoom, or one way or the other, or all three.
Right.
You know, isn't that cool?
Yeah.
There's no
I think
excuse.
that's what we're talking about.
not
There,
to.
there's no excuse,
No
right?
excuse.
No
Yeah,
excuse.
no excuse.
I think God woke us up.
Mhm.
All right,
Absolutely.
He
now
woke us up and fired us up.
Well,
Yeah.
He gave us all the tools. Is what's your excuse now, right?
Right. Yeah.
So, guys, what about the person that's maybe hearing this and they're thinking, well, I'm pretty good with my finances. I'm not in extreme debt, and I'm not hurting, and I'm not impoverished. I'm making it. I'm doing okay. Is this class something that would benefit them, or?
Yeah, definitely. This is kind of how I say that when I'm teaching a class. For those people who feel that they have a good handle on their finances, I say, okay, great. But think about the person that you love or have influence with. All right, that person, that kid, your kids, your grandchildren, that kid, those kids at church, wherever the case may be, or just someone you love, you have influence with. What about those people? Can God use you? Can He trust
Yes.
you to go and begin to be a mentor and help them with their finances to become better? Right? Don't just think about the class. And I say this every class. This class is not just for you. It's not just for you, because some people they are struggling and they just don't want to say it, right? And you may be good, right? It could be into both ends of the spectrum, but I believe at the end of the day we need to look beyond ourselves and look at God has called us to be ambassadors for Christ. And so
right.
even we may be okay, quote unquote, but what about some people who are around us who may not have access? We could be the blessing, right? The blessor whom God has called the blessing.
At my age, I'm a little more blunt about it. What's your credit score? If you don't know, you need to be in this class. Do you have an emergency fund? You need to be in this class. Do you have a savings plan? What's your retirement looking like? Da 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 da. And if the answer is no, you need to be in this class. Have you even thought about it? Or are you going to wait till it's too late?
Yeah.
Even with the young kids, middle school, high school,
definitely.
to show them how they can have $1 million at retirement. Wow, they need to start now, though,
Absolutely.
rather than when you get to
Absolutely.
be in the
Well,
older
more
years.
than $1 million, Jimmy, I would say as well the knowledge base, because
yes,
I grew up in in a community, we would classify low income, right? My grandparents, I was raised by my grandparents. They didn't teach us about money management
right.
or being a good steward. Well, they taught us how to give our 10%, give
The
our
basics.
dime, right? The basics. But when it came to really knowing, interest rates, predatory lenders, all those terms, how to plan for the future, how to become a millionaire, how much money. The way I say that is, what is your number? Do you know what your number is?
And that's funny because I was thinking about that as you were talking, right? I'm not going to say who because it's a family member, but he was teaching his daughters to say, credit's not really important. He says because as long as you pay cash, you're okay. And I'm like, it may have been way back then, but nowadays, I mean, you can't get an apartment. If you're applying for a job, they'll check your
Utilities.
credit. I mean, there's so much different thing that's tied in, and if it's not good, you're going to have problems and issues.
Oh, and that is a strategy. If that's the way you want to roll, that's okay. But more likely, you're going to have a mortgage or a car loan at some point, so you got to be prepared for that.
That's what I'm telling. Because if you can go buy a $200,000 cash, go buy it.
Yeah,
that means you're very good off. Somewhere down the line, you don't have financial issues.
Sure.
If you can do that, but a lot of times you have to. You just can't drop $200,000. Like I know I couldn't.
Well, one of the things we address in the course is the difference between assets and resources. And assets, that's great. If you got $200,000 in the bank, that's a great asset to have. But most of us don't.
Right.
But resources, being able to draw on that good credit score, being able to use it to your advantage, like you said, to get a job, to get away from a deposit on the utilities or cell phones,
or even a car,
to be able to make a major purchase. As my score went up, I was amazed that I was able to get my mortgage about 5 years ago. I was able to get my mortgage at, I think it was 3.5%. Well, now here it is, almost 5 years later, and I got another offer the other day in the mail. Now I'm paying 1.75%.
That's money in your pocket. Right?
Absolutely.
Yes.
You just are
you
able
have
to
the
take
right
advantage of
credit score,
that.
that
If
is.
you've
Right.
got the right
It comes
score.
back to the credit.
Which
Right.
kind of goes back to what you have, and Jimmy has in Corpus Christi. He has the one of his facilitators actually specializes in helping
We
people.
all love Levon Spears,
Yes.
and so Coast Life is a number of credit unions, teachers credit unions, and now it's Coast Life. Long story short, she's an expert. She trains and she teaches at no charge for the credit union how to get your credit score up to at least 620. That's where it starts getting better interest
Magic
rates.
number.
And 850 would be a perfect score. But she
620
and
or
the bank
720?
720.
Okay.
Well, it's 620.
I'm just no.
620
higher than
is
that.
Because I think as listeners we hear so many different things, and we
Yes.
just want to make sure that because I thought it was 820. No,
Well, 820 is really good. It's the
really
most
good.
good you can get. But
man, I wish I
620 is a magic point at
Yeah,
which
that's right.
Gotcha.
you can start to get decent interest loans. You're not looking at your paycheck,
Yes.
lenders.
What's the
your
highest you can
creditors.
get?
The highest is
850
850.
850.
Yes.
Is that what you have?
Is that your cell?
No, I was
Yeah, I
thinking
think
of a friend of mine had that.
You need to be a facilitator then.
A friend of mine had that kind of rating, and he said, "Yeah, I went to the car dealership, and they just asked me to go pick a car, whatever you want."
Yeah,
I'm like,
exactly.
That's
That's the way it is.
signature.
And wouldn't it be great if people had that? Or I've heard a lot, 419 kind of thing. But do you even know what it is? So in class
Yes.
you're going to learn. And then we all have experts in every city
Yes.
that have been doing this a lot longer than us, and they're the experts, and they give of their time. Levon teaches entire classes, and so it's revival every time she comes, and she's the expert, and that establishment can help you with all kinds of fancy equipment as well, and can navigate you through that, and at no charge. So it's how we roll. It's at no charge, but it is amazing information that you can get.
Well, I think you hit the nail on the head with just in all three of our cities we have experts, who can actually take the class deeper, and really begin to, expand on the thoughts and the concepts that are there, because they know the latest and greatest, those things that we need
I
to
think
watch
God's,
out for.
okay, I'm going to give you Zoom. I'm
Right.
going to give you this person and that person and that person.
Yes.
God's
Yes.
putting all this together in
He's
an amazing
doing it.
way.
Yeah.
Yes, Lord.
So if someone wants to sign up for one of these classes, whether it's in Corpus or in Houston or in San Antonio, or you could be in California for all I
Well,
know.
with the internet now, this gets broadcast everywhere. But we do
Absolutely.
radio reaches South Texas, so it should cover down Corpus and
Outstanding.
possibly
So
Houston,
if
you're
they want to
listening
sign
down
up,
there.
how do they do that?
Go to our website, STCH Ministries. In fact, you can scroll down you look for our ministry, Faith and Work, Faith and Finances. The application's there, our numbers are there. You can call whatever's closest to you, or call any one of us. We promise we won't let you fall through the cracks. We're going to call you back. In fact, you could do the application right there, and it's going to go to the one that's closest to you anyway. So it's
Yes.
very simple. But look, our numbers are there. Just call us.
And the website is again www.stchm.org.
That's correct.
And I can tell you firsthand, because being there with the class and seeing how it's taught, it's very easy. It's very interactive. It's just an asset for you to be able to learn this, because it's not going to take anything away from you. It's going to add value to you
That's
in whatever capacity you really look at it. And that's what it's geared for, right? To help you and to take you to the next level.
Yeah, man.
Absolutely.
Amen. That's great.
Well, we still have a little time, so I don't know. You guys already kind of ran out of
stories.
Well, no,
Let's
we
hop
got
into
tons
a
of
dance.
stories. We could keep on going all hour, but I saw you looking over at your screen
Yeah.
there, so I thought
We got
maybe
about
were
3
getting
minutes,
close.
so-
All right, I'll do real quick, promise.
Okay.
So there's a story about a cat named Binks. And so it was adults upstairs and children were downstairs, and they were both in class. And one day, the children, they were a 9-year-old, 10-year-old in the class. They burst through the door. Guess what? We have an emergency. Our cat Binks, she got in a cat fight. She bit my mom. She's in the animal jail right now. And it's going to take us $248 to get her out.
Wow.
Those two kids raised $248 in 3 weeks. What's wrong with the adults that can't seem
Oh,
to
my
establish a savings plan for an emergency? We can learn from children.
Motivation.
Yeah.
Motivation
The need-
matters.
when there's a need, you figure out, a lot of times you'll figure out how to do it.
Yeah.
They
But-
taught us. Wow.
Yeah,
man.
but you kind of get complacent. You think it's okay, and then you get to that point when there is an emergency.
And it's not if, it's when.
Yeah.
Yes.
And then you're trying to figure out how do we
Yeah,
fix this.
That's right.
Yeah.
Well, some of you out there right now, you're thinking, man, I need this class, but I'm trying to get a job. I'm trying to get ahead. I'm trying to do better in my life. And really what you need is you need to come alongside someone who's been there. And I can tell you from experience that we've been there. We've had the hardships. We've had the difficulties, and we want to help. So I hope that you'll consider going to the website stchm.org and signing up for an upcoming class with Faith and Finances or Faith and Work, which will also, we didn't talk much about that, guys, but that will really help you, set you up not only to get a job, but to be able to keep a job and to prove yourself to be the most valuable employee to your employer.
I would also add to that, Tim, you mentioned for those people who have a desire to take the class, but you may not have the resources. Well, at STCH Ministries, we have some amazing
Yes, we
donors
do.
that have actually made it possible for you, those of you who are listening today, those of you who are desiring to be better and to become a better manager of the monies that God has given you. We provide everything, all of these classes at no cost to you.
Yes.
So that is a major blessing that God has given us. Again, best kept secret that don't need to be a secret anymore.
And that's what we're talking about. Something I tell some of the nonprofits that are starting off, I said, you may have the best program, you may have, the greatest people, resource, everything, but if people don't know, then how are they going to tap into what you're doing? And so I believe it's important, like what you all have shared with our listeners. If you're listening right now, again, we were talking about no more excuses, right? What else do you want? It's practically put at your feet, and then it's up to you to say, well, do I act on this, or do I just continue doing what I've been doing and just really it's like that hamster, right, that's on the wheel.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And in their head, I think they think we're going somewhere,
Yeah.
and they're just
What's the definition of insanity, Sal?
doing the same thing over and over and expecting different results.
Yeah.
So it's time to get up. It's time to move. It's time to be able to, the scripture I'm coming to mind real quick. It's that where it says that Christ wants us to live abundantly.
Absolutely.
And when I think abundantly, it
free.
means an overflow.
Yes.
It doesn't mean just what you have, but it means
John
an
10:10.
overflow. Yeah, that's it.
I've come
That's
that
it.
you
And
might
if you
have
can
life.
trust us with a little thing.
Yes.
That's right. And
Yeah.
the great things I will put you in charge of. So
Yes.
there it is. We want things, but they don't come free. Sometimes
Amen.
you have to work at them, and you have to really put time and effort and sacrifice. But believe me, like I tell the youth, I said, look, anything that you do or that you learn that's good will create a value in you. You may not see it at the moment, but as you keep learning and growing, people will see that value in there and in you, and they're going to say, man, I want this guy, or I need this guy, and you'll have a lot of doors that'll be opened. Thank you again for joining us. We're here at the end of our show. We'll be back here next week. God bless.